in this lesson, we'll transfer the hair over to Mudbox and begin doing some sculpting on it. So back in Maya, you can see that I've just added a few more, and they're a little silly looking right now, sticking out like that, but we'll be able to shape this a little bit more in Mudbox. And you can see I've just mirrored it over to the other side. So right now it's symmetrical. So what I want to do now is just grab this mesh. And again, if you're working in another application, you just want to export it, import it into Maya. Since we're working import it into Mudbox. Since we're working in Maya, I'm just going to go ahead and send it over. And I want to add it to the current scene. So now we can jump over into Mudbox and see that that hair has been added in. Now I want to lock the other pieces of geometry so that I don't accidentally modify these. You can see this is our band. I'm going to go ahead and rename this so I can actually see what that is in our object list. And let me also go ahead and delete that camera. And then let's rename our hair. So we'll just call that hair. So I've got the head lock, the eyes, the gums, teeth. Let's lock the headband as well. So we're just working with the hair now. All right. So let's go ahead and subdivide this. Now I'm going to go to grab and start to do some manipulation here. I'm going to start with symmetry on, with mirroring on, just because the work I'm doing now is just kind of housekeeping, keeping the hair from penetrating through the headband that we have. You can see that there's some areas here that it's penetrating through. And so I'll just come along the back here and make sure that that is not the case. So just kind of pull that in, and under here we'll kind of pull it down so it's not penetrating through. Pull it into the head a bit. Okay, and we can start to do a little bit of shaping on these bits in here. Let's get a kind of a larger brush and kind of pull that down a little bit. Same thing here. I don't want it to penetrate into the back of the sort of bandana there. So we'll kind of pull that down a bit, just so it's not penetrating into the mesh there anymore. Now I also want to come in on the sort of division where this hair starts to come out, and I just want to pull that up a bit, just so it's a little bit more of a natural transition. Okay, I can also come in and smooth out these areas along the sides here. Let's kind of pull this up. We pull this out a bit. So we can just start to kind of rough this up a little, push it in a little underneath that bandana, and maybe pull it out and just kind of rough it up a bit. Still working at a fairly low res. We'll kind of stay away from the center. Okay, we can kind of smooth out again some of these areas. Let's grab this next to the ear, and I'm actually going to kind of move that back a bit and kind of into the head a little bit more. We can come in here in some of these areas and start to smooth it out, pull it out, and just generally work on that transition a little bit. You can see we've got some of these that are fairly sharp edges. And so we'll just continue to modify this here. So once we get something that we like as far as the placement, when we can start doing some sculpting on this, we can go ahead and just subdivide this. And I want to get a nice line in the center. So I'm going to go ahead and just sculpt this line in. But I don't want it to go all the way. I want it to kind of end right up here. Okay, let's subdivide again, and if you want to emphasize that a little bit more, we can. All right, and now we can either use sculpt or we can use wax to kind of come in and just start to add a little bit of mass to this. So I'm going to come in here and start to add a little bit, kind of radiating out from this part. You can see I'm still fairly low res here. Come in and say this is needs to be sort of pushed in a little bit. And you know, this is hair, so it's going to be fairly organic. We don't have to be too careful. We just want it to kind of flow in the right direction. And come in here and kind of blend this hair in with the rest of the hair. Okay, start to just come in and add some of this detail. Now I'm using wax, but we could also use that sculpt. That vector displacement would be a really good option here as well. So if we went to sculpt, we chose, let's choose maybe one of these in the middle here. We can see how that's going to work. Let me subdivide once again. So you can see this will let us get that crease on one side. So we can come in here and really start to create some nice detail coming in that has a little bit of that overlap. Okay, coming in here. Can add that going this way. It depends on which way you actually do the stroke. Okay, and come in here and really just kind of create a nice stylized look. And we want to keep that line where that's actually coming into the stress of the bandana there. We want to keep that nice and tight. All right, we can also try this larger one, or this one with that has kind of the detail on both sides, and come in and create some of the kind of larger pieces. And again, just want to kind of think about the flow, and they'll kind of come up and then disappear as they go into one another. Again, pretty simple and stylized. We can also get this last one to work on some creasing, some little, and so we can come in here where this is coming right out of that bandana and start to add a little bit more detail in there where that's got all of that tension on it. Same thing here. Maybe get a little bit more detail in those areas here. We can use this to kind of sharpen up and add little creases and bits coming in. Now maybe up here we've got a little bit more of that going on where this is coming off. Okay, so those large open areas can maybe be a little bit more, less detailed, and then maybe these areas in here you've got a bit more detail, so you can come in here and make maybe much smaller lines in here. So again, we'll come in and just sort of play with this, the direction of this coming down here, kind of break up that hairline a bit. Now it's symmetrical right now, so if you want to kind of break that up, then you can certainly do that. And come in here and just sort of, come in and add a little bit of detail to here. You definitely want to come in underneath and add some detail underneath here. That's going down. And same thing up here. And then kind of come in and add the same sort of detail coming down here. You just want to repeat that process coming down into the back of the hair as well. So come in here and just sort of start to add those lines coming in that kind of follow along with the topology that we've already created, coming along the side here, out to the ends. Just remembering to keep that line for the bandana tight. Okay, and just sort of break everything up a little bit. If you need to turn off the headband for a little bit of sculpting that you need to do, that's certainly fine too. You can just turn off the visibility for that, or we can just right click on this and go to isolate, and then you can see we can really have a lot of access to our mesh. And come in here and modify this a little bit without having to worry about any of the other geometry. Okay, and then we can go ahead and say show all. And there you can see we can come in and add those lines in that show the sort of the tightness right along the back. Kind of break this up a little bit. Make those lines a bit deeper and make maybe a few more of them. All right. So just have a little fun with it. You can see that it's a pretty loose procedure to come in and do this sculpting. You just want to sort of follow along. You can see it looks a little bit weird up here. We've got this sort of real wide shape here, so we can kind of take our grab and thin that out a bit. We want to have it stylized, but we still want it to look good, so we can come in and modify that a bit. Maybe take it so we've got more of a shape sticking out to the front. And come in here and raise up some of those shapes just to make a more interesting silhouette. So it's not just flat. Okay, we can come in here and maybe if that hair's sticking up a little higher, we want to push that down in the center. So we can kind of come in and push that in a bit. Use grab and just kind of emphasize that a little bit more. Okay, so just kind of something like that. We will be painting it, so we'll have the opportunity to change this up. If we want to kind of move this down on the forehead a little bit more, we can certainly do that. I just want to be able to see a little bit of that forehead, even though it is exaggerated. Okay, so once we've got the hair sculpted, the next thing that we want to do is to come in and start to prepare this model for painting. And we can do this in a few different ways. So we'll take a look at that in the next lesson.